Now, as all these things come on live, a lot of these things come on quickly. You can always reach me at Dr. Paul at Gmail, Dr. Paul W. Dyer at gmail.com, or reach me and inbox me here on the Facebook and live. And if you have any questions, just reach out. You know, if you watch this show, Bridges Live, you know what I do. And thank you for all your sponsors who sponsor me and who support my show by sharing, liking, and donating, because none of this gets to run for free. So we all like to make that economic wealth here, abroad, and all the great places. So without further ado, as we come online, as all these shows come online, I like to say that no matter what I do in my shows, I want you to understand that I want you to get something out of it. Because if you don't get any information out of it, you don't get an understanding out of it, then you're losing so much of the show. And I always have my guests on. I reach out to them. My guests are just amazing, amazing human beings who do so much on this globe, right? And they're putting their foot on the ground, their voices in the air, and their hearts out to do the things that they're doing. And we always need your support. We always need your help, but we need your input. We need you to also do the things you're doing to support the community you're supporting and to support the lives that we are sharing with. Without further ado, please, Dr. Val, introduce yourself, and then we'll get right into the show about what we're doing.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Dyer. My name, of course, Val Okaru-Bisant, and I'm the CEO of Afrocosmo Development Impact LLC, Maryland. Mm-hmm. I'm also an adjunct professor of business, trade, and economic development at Catholic University. I have over 15 years experience working in the area of trade, investment, and economic development. I worked both in the private sector and also in a multilateral organization, the World Bank, many years ago. Well, not too many years ago, I guess, but I have also published extensively in this area. So that's really in brief what my background is. Now, I have, of course, 2 kids and I'm married. So that's just the basic, nutshell about who I am.
You know, the tip of the iceberg, first of all, I want to just give a shout out to you powerhouse women who are just blazing trails. And it's not like this is like the first year, second year, third year. There's many women out there like yourself who have made strides and just done some amazing thing on this globe, right? We can't just hyper-focus on just this county, the state. We're talking across the world. We are moving forward. And until we embrace that, I'm talking we as men. That's really what it comes down to. Until we as men really, truly embrace that, it just seems like you keep running into barriers, right? Do you still run into those barriers yourself?
In terms of gender issues?
Yeah.
Well, it's let me put it this way. I've had male mentors, I've had female mentors. So yes, there are some oddballs out there, but I think in the end analysis, we've made a lot of progress in this area in terms of gender, equality. But I guess, of course I run into barriers, but in the end analysis, I want to be optimistic about the fact that we've come a long way. And I guess I'm grateful to those that came ahead of me, women that paved the way for me. And look what just happened with the elections, with Biden elected an African-American woman as VP. This is like history. And of course, Hillary Clinton was the one who cracked the ceiling, the glass ceiling. And now we have, Kamala Harris, who has now broken that glass ceiling. But we still have a long way to go, definitely. In Africa, of course, Asia, the whole gambit, education of girls. And of course, I work my business, Afrocosmo Dev Impact. We actually also help female-owned SMEs, small, medium enterprises. We also help men, male youth-owned small and medium enterprises. But we tend to zero in on those female youth-owned SMEs, what we call the survivalist SMEs, trying to promote trade, making them more productive, incentivize them to formalize so that they can be economically viable. So yeah, it's definitely, in terms of the barrier, there's still, we still have a long way to go. But we women have to do quite a lot with our kids. You heard me before the show started. My son. Those of us who have boys, that's how to do it. We have to sort of, because it starts when they're little. The whole concept of chauvinism is implanted not just by men, but also by mothers sometimes. If a boy cries, you say, "Oh, don't cry, don't you know you're a boy?" You toughen him up. So we have a long way to go, I think, in terms of breaking down the cultural barriers. But we've made a lot of strides. I'm optimistic.
I didn't want to be remiss, but go Cardinals! I had to throw that out there. With being Cardinals as being a school I went to myself, played some football at. So, but I want to get into you helping with your development LLC. Let's break that down real small. Let's go with what you do, right? And let's start from there.
Yes, as I wear three hats as this CEO, general counsel.
Yeah.
Of course, founder of. I set it up, and it's a small business, and of course we have a board of directors. I picked mostly people I know from my Stanford Law background. I went to Stanford Law School, and a partner at Squire that I work with, and I have and then my daughter is a youth board member, and basically what I do in my capacity as the CEO is I do advisory work. I advise, I mentioned earlier, SMEs on how to become more productive, especially SMEs in African nations, AFCTA, Africa Continental Free Trade member nations.
I'm going to say, some people don't know what an SME is.
Small, medium enterprise.
Thank you. Because the definition of SME is very, very depending on the country you go to. The OECD definition is based on size. Size, correct.
They talk about in terms of SME, less than 50, and then the small and medium less than 200 or 250, thereabouts. But in African nations, they don't only consider size.
Yes.
They also consider capital. The Dangote is a very, very wealthy man. And when he started out, even if he had a small, in terms of size, they would still consider him not an SME per se because of his capital. You see, so capital matters a lot in most African nations now because most African countries, 98% of businesses have less than 10 employees, believe it or not.
No, I do believe.
2% of businesses have more than 10 employees in terms of small, medium enterprises I'm talking about now. So you can see the fragility of most of those SMEs.
And this makes
very,
up
very small.
This makes up for a lot of businesses in Africa. Now, that's in Africa as a whole, but are you focusing on one area, Africa, or Africa in a whole? Which one?
Good question. I'm zeroing in on most African nations in terms of those that are right now, Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, Egypt, because Nigeria, South Africa, and Egypt actually comprise more than 50% of GDP of the whole of Africa.
That's true.
Very, very critical country.
And most people don't know that. Most people don't know that that's how big Nigeria is bringing in that much money. And also, Nigeria is the first one that just recently went to 4G. 70% of Nigeria is all 4G now, which that means that opens up a bigger market just for Nigeria, and a lot of money's flowing through Nigeria from the other African areas through Nigeria to get out. It's very important.
That's right.
I was so excited.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So basically, Also, let's not forget the diaspora, because it's
Yes.
not just African nations. We're looking at the diaspora here.
Yes.
And I keep talking about it, not just within the rubric of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which came into effect last year, 2019, but was supposed to be operationalized by now, but because of COVID, they're waiting till January 2021. Wamkele is the Secretary General. He's the head of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, the secretariat that's based in Ghana.
Yes.
Now, there is a move now to include the dance sisters in the U.S. in this whole gambit of trade, transboundary. I think that I see the connection is unstable. I hope you can hear me, right?
Yes.
So I'm also working. You asked, linked to what you said earlier about what we do. The Africa, Afrocosmo Dev Impact, my company, we also help to bridge that gap in terms of, I don't want to call it the disconnect in trade, but we're trying to promote a trade between the African diaspora here and the Africans, the small, medium enterprises in Africa. So it's not just specific to specific countries in Africa, but we're looking at the individuals. Some of my clients are also like, we have an African diasporan who's in the energy sector.
Yes.
And he's based here. He's a doctor who has solid waste. He's investing in Africa. And we've been helping him with an innovative energy, project, solid waste to energy kind of project. It's a very new concept, you see, relatively new in Africa. So we're advising him, we do due diligence, capacity building, those kind of things. But what we've done with him specifically is helping him with the, pre-appraisal phase, some of the risks, advising him, negotiation strategies for banks and, the whole gambit. What does he need? In fact, we helped him with, setting up his business to start with, giving him some advice and input on what to do. And then now he's at the stage beyond the pre-appraisal where he's at the appraisal phase, and we're going to help him with the transactional side of things. And when in terms of negotiating more of the deals. He's actually now in Cameroon, but he'll be coming back I believe in a few weeks or something. But it's exciting. He's a doctor in Baltimore, but he has this business on the side, this SME business, and he's a diasporan, an African diasporan. Yes. So yeah.
When we talk about trade, now there is a still very weak trade link in the United States trading with Africa, and the different now people trade, right? The small SMEs, right? But as far as a United States, we trade very little in comparison to what the small businesses are doing. Why is that?
What do you mean, the United States as a whole? You mean the U.S. trading with,
yes,
as a country with,
yes,
or the governments trading,
yeah,
together?
Yes.
I think the U.S. businesses, the large businesses, are the ones that are actually involved in trading. And I think the U.S. businesses that trade, it actually benefits the U.S. government indirectly. I'm not sure if I'm answering the question.
You are
directly, but in terms of capital gains tax.
Yes.
So the U.S. itself as a country, countries, for instance, with the AGOA, the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act.
Yep.
Which was signed into law in 2000 by President Clinton.
Yep.
And of course, President Obama extended it to 2025. It's not a treaty.
No.
Create a free trade area with free flow of goods and services across borders, of states. It's a preferential treatment that the U.S. gives to countries on a case-by-case basis.
And this is one of the few that is given that I know of that only Africa has. That type of free trade.
Absolutely. Yes. So it's yeah, exactly. So it allows the U.S. president to enforce preferential eligibility requirements, some type of criteria against African nations. For instance, they could, suspend duty-free treatment status for certain products, right? Trump, for example, President Trump took retaliatory measures against Rwanda and enforced the eligibility criteria against the country's apparel, that's the textile industry, in July, I believe, July 30,
17.
2018.
18 or 17?
Rwanda took measures. Second-hand clothing was being done well. They believed, President Kagame of Rwanda believed that second-hand clothing coming from the U.S. could not compete, or the local the local textile industry in Rwanda could not compete effectively with the second-hand clothing that was coming in, the price,
right?
The low price of second-hand clothing that was imported in Rwanda. So he banned those. So the U.S. took a retaliatory measure against them. So yes, but let's bear in mind that even though it's the government, AGOA is sort of like a legislation that the U.S. government enacted, right? It's not the U.S. government per se that's exporting. It's the companies. It's enabling companies to be able to export products to those countries in Africa. And of course, there's the USAID has done quite well in terms of statistically from 2010 to 2018. The hubs, the USAID hubs, the last time I checked, the USAID had a hub in 3 places in Africa to promote capacity building and awareness of this AGOA, the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act. And they moved one of the hubs. They have one in South Africa, one in Kenya, and then the third one is in Nigeria. It used to be in Accra, Ghana, but they moved it to Nigeria, the third one. And these hubs have been quite instrumental in facilitating, the awareness of the AGOA and trade. And of course, building capacity, because one of the problems that most SMEs face, and I suspect even here, the diaspora, is scaling up. Because even if, say, somebody who had a business, a grocery store here, an African American, wanted to order spices from a Nigerian agri-business person. You mentioned my sectors. I work in, food supply chain from cradle to grave, agri-business to food retail, and also energy sector. We work along, different sectors, because it's not just trade, but also investment and economic development that we do advisory work in. But anyway, if they ordered, say, 1,000 or so items, most likely the SME will not be able to meet the demands because of the small economies of scale. Because of the scale. They have too few employees. It's not like China, where they have big factories and they can meet demand. China can afford, they hire, I'm not proposing it, they hire laborers for very cheap, $1 a day in terms of exchange rates. If that. So this is something we have to rethink, how to encourage this.
Here's, you have such a special position in the world and understanding the trade and the law and the legal matters between the two. Your extent of knowledge is off the charts. It's amazing. The question we have, and I've talked about this on other of my shows, and many people can catch on my shows. This is British Live from Dr. Paul. I'm talking with Dr. Val Okaru-Bisant, who is the developer of her organization, of the Afrocosmo, right? That she's dealing in trade, trade agreements, in council, and there's a lot of things. The question I have is very specific. There's a lot of people inside the United States of American blacks who unable to ever get a good development or business for themselves, but yet a lot of Africans in Africa have a great sense of business. Where is that? Where being a teacher here in the school here and teaching this type of education, where did you see the disconnect and why that has happened? That's got to be so staggering to you to see it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't want to disagree with you that African Americans are not entrepreneurial.
No. They are. Some are very
you're
good.
Absolutely right in terms of numbers.
Yes.
But in terms of the numbers, maybe is that what we're driving at? That
yes.
But they are entrepreneurial.
Right.
And I think what you're trying to say to get to what you're saying is that you're saying that it's not to the same extent
yes.
as our African brothers and sisters.
Yes.
You know, you're taking me in the route of empowerment, black empowerment and liberation. It's deep.
It's deep.
You know,
it's deep.
It's almost like, I don't want to be rhetorical, but it's almost like, why is it that when you talk about George Floyd, when you talk about the whole gambit,
mm-hmm.
I don't want to, start.
No.
You know, I always say, and I don't know, I know you listened to my interview when I moderated with Pierre Lumumba.
Yes.
Underpinning from SARS in Nigeria to whatever happens here
yes.
is economic empowerment. And I think that the history of our African American brothers and sisters here, our blacks, let me just say we're all black.
Good.
The history of black Americans in this country, right, is tied to our history. However,
mm-hmm.
they have had a different, I think, our brothers, and I think you're one of them, right?
Yeah,
You're my brother who's, ancestrally, African American from, time from slavery era and all. And the question for me is, why are they denied credit?
Yeah.
Why is it that, because it goes back, there's a question of credit too, creditworthiness. Some of them do have creditworthiness, but sometimes it seems to me that foreign people, and I'm talking now as a foreigner, who come here seem to be getting credit more easily, because I have both. Being that I'm a black American woman who's not ADOS, the African descendants of slaves. I don't know, the ADOS movement.
I do.
Yeah. So I'm not part of that. So I in a way, I sympathize. I see where they're coming, because there's the story of the ADOS, the African Americans, is a little different from the story of those of us who come here. And I don't want to say we have a thicker skin, but maybe because we come here and we are taking the advantage, but we feel that, okay, if we're here, we better swallow. You know what they call swallow?
I do.
Take whatever is dished out to us.
Right.
You're laughing, right?
Because I know. Because I know.
There's a lot to it.
Yes.
You come here, and it kind of, let me liken what you just asked me about to, the Africans that are fleeing from poverty
mm-hmm.
in the high seas,
mm-hmm.
ready to die.
Yes.
Economic refugees,
yes.
political asylum seekers,
yes.
or those who are not necessarily economic or political asylum, but they're just coming here in search of education.
Yes.
Or whatever they're looking for. It looks like we're hungrier. Not that African Americans are not hungry, but maybe I'm just trying to rationalize. I've talked about the credit issue, or maybe they're denied, they don't have access to it as much as or they're not given access as much as those who come in from outside are. And that's another conversation for another day. I don't want to put forward a conspiracy issue.
No.
Right?
You know what? You really did hit it on the head, and I have said this before on my other show. So I'm going to. We say, I understand exactly what you're saying, and then I'll say it. You doesn't have to come out of your mouth. I'll say it's that it's not, even if you say they're not as hungry, and that is not the case for all. We got to remember, people, we're not talking about the whole thing, right? We're talking about pieces of the pie. Because I've also said, I think a lot of this has everything to do with they're emotionally broken from slavery. I really think there's
because,
this.
They're probably hardworking.
Yes.
And when I say swallow, those people who come in, those of us who come, we have not been bitten as much for years.
Right.
So even if we're swallowing, it's no big deal.
Right.
Because somebody who has been tormented generations upon generations,
correct.
It's a different historical story.
Yes.
We share the same, history of the oppression of colonization and slavery, but it's not to the same extent. You know what I'm saying? And what's interesting is that Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, it was just this weekend that we were celebrating, Rosa Parks, right?
Right.
Just this weekend that we were celebrating the march, right? When Rosa Parks refused to get up.
Mm-hmm.
And because of Rosa Parks, you and I are able to sit where we want to sit in the bus,
mm-hmm.
right? So we have a lot to, I'm sorry?
No.
I'm sorry?
No.
Yes. So we have a lot to be thankful for, right? Now we all share the same, struggles, but not to the same extent, because the struggles here somewhat helped us and vice versa, the struggles in Africa. But I think historically, the black man has been beaten up, man.
Yes.
But they have succeeded. A lot of them, and you can point to Obama, President Obama, you can point to success stories. You and I, we're, doing okay, but it's the collective.
Yes.
The black people still are down and under.
Yes.
Globally, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, it's a fact. It's a fact.
There's not many multi-billionaires that are black.
No.
It's the global landscape. It's not. But we're getting there. And, we need a collective in terms of multicultural force to help us. It's not going to be only black folk, because Martin Luther had Jewish people marching with him,
right?
Catholic nuns, whites marching with him, Asians, the whole gambit. It's as President Biden said, I call him president because as far as I'm concerned, he's already president. President-elect Biden said the soul of this nation had to be renewed, when he came in. I don't want to go political. But all I'm saying is that it's a collective of multiracial, multicultural that's needed to move black folk forward. But we have to help ourselves. And I don't think that African Americans or, ADOS or non-ADOS, whatever, we black folk are necessarily lazy people. No, I don't think that has anything to do with it. I don't believe that concept at all.
No.
I just feel that it's deeper. There's a historical angle to it that has really penetrated the minds of the Africans and the black folk that is really dumbing them down. So there's a psychological. I always wonder why it's not just from the economic standpoint of empowerment through giving credit to blacks to own their own businesses in the inner cities, but even with the police force, having to have more black people join the police force, train black kids in their neighborhoods to patrol their own neighborhoods. That's what we need. Empowerment. Jobs. I keep saying it. There's no job creation, wealth creation. That's the key to all this.
Dr. Val,
we have to.
It's
so important. We have to.
One of the things, you are so amazing. You're spot on. And there's not enough brothers and sisters on this planet that I hope keep saying the same thing, beating the same drum. Let this heart rhythm keep resonating. Resonating means vibrating, to create this new paradigm that we're shifting into. I understand also, and you kind of touched on it, and I want to ask you directly. It's very difficult. I'm going to put you back into the classroom, teacher. Is it difficult for a student to learn when they don't understand how broken they are? Is it difficult for a student to learn?
When they don't understand how broken they are?
Yes.
So,
Either emotionally...
It will be difficult.
Yes. Keep going. Go.
I'm sorry, I'm listening.
No. If they're broken financially, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, are they able to learn?
Oh, that's a very good question. Of course not.
Of course
it's very hard.
It's very hard.
It's very, very hard. And that's where support comes in. That's where, as a professor, as a teacher, you have to pay attention to cues. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You pay attention to cues to see the bigger picture. It's not even at my level of, teaching in a university or a college level, but even it's even worse when they're little.
Yes.
Because they can't even express themselves. Can you imagine a kindergartner having problems? She's in a single family home and no. Yes, it does affect. That's why, it's very important to pay attention to cues to see what is going on with you missed class. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Definitely it is. And that's why it's good that, and I want to say that Catholic University has academic success departments that promote, helps, students that I need. Even now with COVID, I think they have a department that gives... I'm sorry, am I breaking?
Yeah, you're breaking up just a little bit.
Hello?
Yeah, now you're back. You're back.
Oh, so where did I break up?
You're breaking up where Catholic University has a department. Hello?
Yes, they have a department that... Hello?
Hello, I got you. I got you.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. With COVID, there are students that can't afford because they don't have computers in their homes. Financially, they're not financially capable of, taking computers so that they can work from home. Those kind of things, or they're going to I think there's in the public school system here in Howard County, they're doing that too for some kids. It's very important to pay attention to that, and I think some universities actually pay attention to that when they're admitting students, because you can't, if two students have the same experience, that's a different story in terms of your criteria for admissions. But if one has other extraneous factors, be it financial, other personal reasons, medical or whatever, you have to pay attention to that, right? Economically disadvantaged kids, racially disadvantaged kids, and the whole gambit. That definitely affects people, definitely, no doubt about it. But as a professor, I always pay attention to that in class.
When we talk about economic development, when we talk about trading to different countries, when we talk about building our personal and cultural wealth, we talk about hard work. There is no small ends to this. There are pieces that you have to ask for help. If people needed your help, how can they reach you?
Well, my website, I didn't put it up. It's www.afrocosdev.com. That's AFROSDEV.com. Afro, AFRO, cos, COS, dev, DEV.com. If you put it up, maybe I don't know is it possible to put it up on the screen?
Yeah, I will be able
and
to.
They can also, if they go to my website, they can go to the comment section and send me an email from there.
Okay. I will make sure.
They Google my name, I'll come up, and they can also go contact me through LinkedIn or through Twitter. Perfect.
But I'll make sure it gets into the YouTube feed also. this way. Actually, I'm going to type it into the YouTube thing right now. www.afroc.
No, Afrocos. Yes, COS. COS.
Yep.
D David. E egg V Victor.
Yep. .com.
Yes. So there are many ways. You had asked about how. I think I don't know if you asked that earlier. How can they access markets in Africa? The African diaspora here,
Yes.
African American, the
Yes.
blacks here. First, if you have a business, incorporate it, register your business in an African country. You can contact the USAID hubs. They're in 3 locations. I mentioned earlier South Africa, Kenya, and Nigeria. And then you want to register it. And once you register your business, you can obtain things like bill of lading, AGOA certificate of origin. This is under AGOA I'm talking about.
Right, right.
2025. Standard certificate, manufacturer certificate for AGOA. And if it's plants that your or commodities you want to export, you might need to get a sanitary certificate if you're dealing with certain types of plants. So, but there's a long gambit of things that you can do. I work with a law firm and, Squire Patton Boggs, Frank Samolis. And if you need any help with this, let me know. And we will definitely help you get on board. If you're a business and you're interested in trading, goods and services.
Absolutely.
In US and Africa, it's very important, very, very important to do this. It's wealth creation and job creation we're talking about here.
Yeah, because if we don't create it, it doesn't come. So we just can't. Right. I don't know what I don't. A lot of my shows that we have, we just can't be waiting for the whole savior to come save us and take us. We have to do the work. We have to make sure we do the work. And I always say this, and I'll say it every time. You are not, and I'm talking to those who feel that they are trying. I want you to get emotionally, mentally checked. Because if you are trying to fulfill a hole that is deep within you from historical issues, you have to start the healing process. Otherwise, prosperity will never come. Prosperity never comes.
Yes, and I like what you just said. And and one of the things that mind boggles me with all the police brutality cases is, I think we in the Black community, we need to also emphasize having more clinics in our community that cater to mental problems and mental issues. It's very stressful.
It's very stressful.
Very stressful. And, for kids that are growing up in neighborhoods where this is happening, if a child, does anything, a Black child, they don't look to, maybe they were emotionally affected or something. There's an emotional dynamics.
Yes, yeah.
But if it's another child that's not a child of color, they will look to that. A Black child is evil, but another, you know what I'm saying?
I do. Because
I've growing up in a neighborhood, and there are lots of good people in those neighborhoods,
mm-hmm.
very hardworking.
Yes.
Very hardworking. Growing their crops. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
You know what I'm saying?
I do.
It's, there are lots of people that come out of that community that are doing very well, and it's not easy. I commend them. It's not easy at all, because you can be totally broken. It's a psychological warfare. Some people say there's a spiritual warfare, but I say there's a psychological warfare, and that's where what you're saying is critical. There needs to be, like I said, training and, like even for police, recruits. I used to tell my students, years ago in the law school when I was in Kentucky, I used to tell my students that wanted to be just public defenders, please also be prosecutors.
Yes.
Work as prosecutors as black people.
Yes,
work on both sides. Look at Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
She was a prosecutor, right? And the advantage of doing that is that you're in a position to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the more you have that happening, the better. Because even the Irish were, the white Irish people, and, they were discriminated against, and the Italians in New York.
Yes, right.
If you read about their history. And then they started telling their kids, you go become a police officer. That's why you find majority of police officers are
Irish.
Catholic
I know.
Or Italian. I'm not saying that black folk, we should all be police officers. I'm actually a businesswoman. And that's where my thing is. But I'm for economic empowerment because I think that that's the root.
Me too.
That's how we can fight it. That's the new civil rights, buddy.
That's it. That's it.
Civil rights. It's economic rights. That's the key. Because we need a whole critical mass. If we don't have enough of us, that's why Oprah Winfrey, even if she's up there, it's a pyramid. It's lonely up there. It's very lonely. That's why she has faced two discriminations that we know that's broadcast. The one when she went to the wedding of Tina Turner in Switzerland, where the woman did not think she could afford. Maybe she did. Maybe she was just trying to put her down.
Who knows?
Your head, right? Now she did it again. They apologized, whatever. But she then faced another case in Italy. Remember?
I do.
With her niece, where she went to buy a bag and they assumed she would. Because we need a collective. We need, it's good to individually succeed.
But
if you're, I'm not trying to promote ethnic,
No.
nepotism or whatever, or let's only favor black. No, I favor my black, white, Asian students and people I know, yeah. But we need to be careful to just say, let's just do this. We have to keep promoting black economic empowerment. Of course, for other races too, but ours is desperate because we don't have enough of them. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't matter how many you have up there. There is a negative stereotype about black folk that will keep haunting you. Even if you're driving your SUV, the police will, be angry with you for having it. Not every police officer. There are many good ones, by the way. But I'm just saying it's a collective thing. You know what I mean? It's a collective. That's what racism is. It's perceptions of people as a collective group. Some people will say, well, I'm not racist. I have a black friend. But when they see black folk in the streets, because it's the collective. That's what I'm trying to tell, But there are many good whites. Like I said, we need a multicultural, that's what we have, a multicultural movement to help bring up the underprivileged people. But poor whites have similar experiences, but the only thing is, you can't tell if your color shows. You can't choose what color you are.
Right.
If you're white, you can easily hide whatever, that you're rich or whatever, and get ahead.
One of the things that people have to understand is that this is not a racial issue. This is an economic issue. And the economic issue is that more blacks have economic disparity, okay? So it's not a racial issue because they're the same mental, emotional breakdowns that poor whites have, poor blacks have. So once you change your economic level, you're going to think similar to the same economic division. So there is no division across the board. So once we change our economics, but first, I definitely have to say we have to change our emotional, struggles, and then we're able to change everything else. I'm not going to keep you all night, but I do.
We need a lot of clinics.
Yes.
Psychological clinics in our neighborhoods.
We're working on it.
Also, banks to help give credit so that people can set up their own businesses. Also, training programs for because you can't change the clan members if they're all joining police force now.
That's right.
Because they're not that strong.
That's right.
Because that's my take. Because the black man, the artist, remember the black man who made the grand czar of the clan member give him his robe, he derobed whatever it is, they're all going to the police force.
Yeah.
That's where they and you know what? We have to change that dynamics. You can't change people's attitude towards you. There are many good police officers out there. You can only change yours. So it's not an easy task because, as you said, there's an emotional dynamics to it. So let's argue for and seek psychological centers, clinics to help our young folk. There's so many. They're going to school. They're working hard. Their mothers are doing 6-7 jobs.
Yes,
it's not easy.
It's not easy.
And also more credit. Give more credit to Black folk so they can, get going. There are many good stories out there coming out of the Black neighborhoods. A lot of hardworking ones. Let's tell their story more so that the perceptions will keep. They say perceptions are reality. Business.
Right?
I don't like that, but that's what Wall Street is all about. It's about perceptions of Black folk. What are we? We're down and under. We're this. We're that. We need to get out of it through more of the critical mass of us creating wealth through owning our own businesses, but giving more credit. If we don't own our businesses, let's have people joining the police, but just different segments where there's power. You know what I mean? That's what's going to help us. Creation. Serious one, not just rhetoric.
When it comes to banks, we were talking about this on a Saturday show called Black Coffee Conversation. There are some black banks who have so many more fees than another bank that it's difficult for blacks to even get loans through a black bank because they have so many. So we need a black bank, or we need a better system, even in a black bank, to help entrepreneurs and minorities to get a better loan. Because if you're giving me all these fees to go to this bank, then I might as well just go to the other bank and I get less fees. So we have to figure something out on that part.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I totally agree. I think because high interest rates can be more stifling.
Yes.
For people who have, the entrepreneurs who have small businesses or are trying to get off their feet. You're absolutely right. One would need to look at why those minority banks, they probably have themselves been stifled.
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a bigger picture. But even the role of philanthropists in this area that could give grants, I would think that we have a number of really wealthy Black folk who could jump in. That people could actually organize meetings and webinars with philanthropic Black folk. So why wouldn't we even have, what's that show that... I don't watch it anymore, where you have people present what their new business is.
Shark Tank.
As a show, we could have, philanthropists come in and, Black folk could pitch in on their new businesses and their new ideas, and you give them a lump sum of money. You know what I mean?
I do.
There are many creative things that could be done because this is a desperate situation.
Yes.
I'm talking about. This is the new civil right. I'm not talking because I'm a business, trade, investment lawyer and professor. I'm a business person. This is common sense, buddy. It's just common sense. I'm not a rocket scientist.
we know if we know if we don't fix this, we're going to fall right back into our second slavery, and it's going to be an economic slavery. And we are so far behind. We are so far behind. I was talking about this just recently with my wife. We are so far behind of getting on board as a collective group. Like you said, we're not talking about the individuals who've done well. We're so far behind as a collective group that we are just struggling. And we'll make it better. We'll keep doing this, keep giving the information.
We have to close that gap.
Yes.
Inequality is a serious problem.
It's a serious problem.
We have to collectively through this job creation and all. Yes. It's very, very, very critical. Yes.
Dr. Val, any last words before you leave?
Well, I just want to say that it's been a wonderful evening, wonderful conversation, and I think
I love it.
Rome wasn't built in a day.
No.
We're going to definitely resolve it. I'm very optimistic that the future holds really good for Black folk and those who are well-meaning.
Mm-hmm.
It's a multicultural move. It's not just for Black folk alone. As you mentioned, they're disadvantaged non-Black people. But I think that, as Biden said, the soul of our nation has been redeemed. And I hope, well, at least it's being redeemed right now, and I'm optimistic that hopefully, the future will be much better. Next year will be much better than this year, I think, for everybody, not just black folk.
But everybody. So yeah. I'll talk to you soon.
And I want to thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. You got to promise to come back on, because I want to get into some of the...
I know. You wanted me to come back next week.
I do.
So I think I will. I'll take you up on that offer, because there's a lot to talk about.
Thank you. You have a great night.
Nice talking. Take care, you too.
Bye-bye.